Welcome to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. We're so glad you're here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm Alan. And we're so excited that you're here.
Yes, we are so glad you're back for another episode. Alan, what are we talking about this week?
Well, I think we're kind of going along our signal chain. And last time we talked about compressors. And for me, the next thing I put on is Overdrive.
Yes, yeah. We're starting a section here. I guess this might be a few-part episode. We were talking of drive, distortion, and I guess we could also do fuzz. But we can actually, let's do the entire episode of fuzz right now. I like it. Alan doesn't. The end.
The end. Well, that's not, okay, that's mostly true, but it's not entirely true. I have one fuzz pedal that I actually like and one that I kind of want to try.
Okay, what is the one you like and one you want to try? We'll get fuzz out of the way here.
Fuzz out of the way? Okay. I don't put fuzz second in my chain, but we can talk, like I said, we'll do it. Okay, so the only fuzz that I like right now is, I think it's a BYOC. That's the Leeds fuzz. And our good friend Chris, who runs Like Jones Pedals, built it for me many years ago. And the only setting I like on it is the open setting. It's not gated. So it's completely open. And to me, it's just a really hairy overdrive, really hairy distortion. I don't like those gated fuzzes. I don't like the ones that feels confined, which is what most fuzz is. So that's the only one that I like, that I know that I like because I've used it. And the one I want to try is the Park Fuzz. And I think...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is that an EQD? Is that what that is? Who makes that? Or Wampler?
I believe it's EQD, but I believe it was like its own company.
It was.
So Park was its own company, and then I think Earthquaker either bought or like brought it back as a recreation and used the original branding or something like that.
Cool. Yeah, I saw the Black Pumas perform live, and Adrian, the guitarist, like his fuzz tone was unbelievable, and I found out that that's what he's using. So I really want to try it.
Yeah, I feel like that actually, just based on what I know of that pedal from whenever that came out, the demos on social media, it feels more in your vein of fuzz than what I like, which is the gnarliest, scoopiest, gatedest thing ever at different times in my signal path.
Yeah.
I do put fuzz second when I have it on my board. I also currently have fuzz at the end of my path because of a new pedal I acquired, which we'll talk about later.
Okay.
But yeah, I like fuzzes of all kinds. I've had different big muffs over the years. I've had a few of the Walrus fuzzes they've released. I most recently had that Dreadbox Disorder that I got from you that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
I have
I did not like
also
that thing.
had... Yeah, you didn't like that thing. I really like that thing. It sounds also fantastic on synthesizers as well as guitars, which is a nice thing for fuzz. You do also have a fuzz technically in the Chroma console.
That's true. I have fuzz,
which is a pretty
Chroma
good
console.
one.
Yep. And I can get there on the LVX because it's got some really good drives built into it that you can access.
That's pretty cool. We'll have to talk about that. The LVX might have its own episode. We already have a ton of YouTube videos about it, but it might be like its own thing. So.
Sure.
So yeah, fuzz, you use it very limited. I use it a lot, especially because I like the way that fuzz washes stuff out. If you use it correctly with your time-based effects, it creates that wall of sound really, really easily without having to stack much else.
True.
But because it's not something you like that much, we're not going to talk about it. That's it. Everybody, that's the fuzz episode. See you next week. No.
Well, hold on. Talk about the new toy because since you mentioned it, talk about that real quick.
Yes. So I just had a birthday. Whenever this comes out, this birthday might be a little bit later. But
happy belated birthday, Paul.
My wife and Alan collaborated on a gift, which I was totally surprised by. And I now am the proud owner of a Collision Devices Black Hole Symmetry. Mm-hmm. Very cool pedal. You got to hear it a bit when we were hanging out the other day.
Yeah.
And the pedal is built around the anatomy of a black hole. So the three effects are based on different sections of a black hole. And the fuzz is really cool in that it's really well voiced, but it's just a single knob of turning fuzz up or turning fuzz down, which typically I would feel very limited by. Mm-hmm. However, whatever magic Collision Device is put into this thing, the fuzz is really, really cool and very useful. And then the other two effects are a reverb and a delay with some interesting modulation and up to a fifth of pitching effects on the reverb.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fuzz on that stacked with the other two, the interplay, it's that pedal is really about the interplay of the three effects because each one individually sounds good,
Right.
but the combination of the three creates some really cool, just weirdness. And I love that because that's what I'm always trying to get out of things is weirdness.
And it's there. It's good weirdness. So the question I have for you real quick, Paul, is you teased this out or this episode as kind of like being a drive thing. And now we're not, I mean, we're about to either stop what we're talking about and go back to the original thing, or we can just keep going down the black hole. Because it even for me playing with it for maybe 30 minutes at your place, like it's something worth talking about. So do we want to do that now, or do we want to let's talk about drives?
We can talk about it, and this can still be the drive episode. I'm not opposed to that, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the other two effects on there are Event Horizon and Ergosphere are the names of the other two effects.
I think you made that last one up.
No, I actually, what's funny about this and cool about this is I'm very fascinated by space in general and actually have a song that should be coming out later this year based around a conspiracy theory about black holes. So it was cool to get a pedal with stuff that I was like, oh, I like the way this sounds. And also it's all the nerdy things I'm like to be into.
Right.
But my first impression too is the delay on it uses, and I cannot remember what the chip is, but you said it's the same one as the Sunny Day delay.
It's the same one that the Dr. Scientist uses on the Sunny Day delay, and I believe the same one that Benson Amps uses on their delay. Yeah,
it's a really, really, like, it's a digital delay, but it has all of the quality of like a Bucket Brigade delay. And even in like the way that the decay works, it's really, really warm and slappy.
Yeah.
And the modulation on that can get really, really crazy, which I was stoked about the chorusy weirdness where you do get a little bit of some of the like early Memory Man type vibes out of this pedal, actually. And then the Verb, which you were messing with, because we actually had this next to the Big Sky MX, and we're playing with them into each other and then comparing, and then we went down a whole rabbit trail, which I believe there'll be a video out by the time this podcast goes live. But
I'm sorry, wait, video about what?
Video about the Big Sky MX, specifically the review of it. I know you already have the sound one out, but we'll have some reviews too.
Yeah.
And the reverb on this just has some really cool character as well, where you can go from like really subtle hints of adding space to once you start to blend in the radiance knob, which is your mix specifically for your octave generator on your trails. And you start to pitch things up, you start to get these really cool just harmonic values in your reverb trail that I was like really, really pleased with. And then at the end of it, you just stack the fuzz on there, and the fuzz just does incredible things. So what were your impressions? I mean, I have really, really been enjoying it as a standalone pedal, but also I'm actually, right before we recorded this, I'm wiring it into my pedal board to see how it plays with everything else too.
Nice. When your wife and I were kind of going over through like options of what to get you, I mean, she threw some things out of what I might know, and I know you had talked about that before. So anyway, as we going down the path of getting this for you and getting it sent, I wanted to look into it more. And what stood out to me, honestly, the first thing that stood out to me is that I feel like it was built around aesthetics before function. And I believe, I think that it was like actually done purposefully and done well. Because when you look at the layout of the knobs, there's like this perfect symmetry to how it's done, or very close to it. But the knobs don't, they're not directly in line with the switches that they are associated with.
Yes, it's very different from your typical multi-effects pedal.
Right.
In the way that they laid it out.
Right, because like you have the JHS double barrel, right?
Yep.
And the knobs and switches on the left and right, do they directly correlate to the left and right switches?
Yeah, it's basically the way that JHS does all of their double pedals, I believe, is it's just like you smash two pedals into each other. And you just have, one power supply for two boxes, essentially. Right.
And I think like Walrus did this with like their double stuff too, like the Slarp and other things that they've done when they took two single boxes and made them into one. That's kind of what Old Blood Noise did with the Dark Light. when they mashed up their sunlight and their dark star together. But a lot, like I said, most of those types of pedals, it's like if it's 2 or 3 that are all together, that's fine. But right above the foot switch is going to be the little mini switches or knobs that directly correlate to that foot switch, but on the black holes. What is this one called again? Black hole symmetry?
It's called the black hole symmetry.
Okay.
Yes.
The black hole symmetry, it's not. So like the very, very center dial is the massive dial for the fuzz. And the fuzz is not the center switch.
No, the fuzz is the far left switch, actually.
Yeah. So when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. It would take my brain a little bit of time to relearn and not just think the way it classically is, but it's beautifully laid out. And they clearly took steps to make it very aesthetically pleasing. And so anyway, yeah, that's what I first noticed about it. And then listening to you play it, like it was instantly like in Paul land and exactly the kind of stuff that you love. And I really enjoyed hearing that. And I also enjoyed like the joy that you could kind of hear coming from you as you're like exploring and getting excited about this new thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I still don't know, and I think we've talked about this and we're trying to figure it out, is it, of the 3 effects, are they in series? Are they in parallel? I still don't know.
Yeah, and to the ear, I really can't tell. And what's interesting about that is, since we're going through this series here to start out the podcast of Signal Path, as I just said earlier, traditionally I put my fuzz right after my compressor just because I like it that way, and I like what it does to my path. Well, with this, I then have a delay and a reverb, which I typically have towards the end of my chain. So I am just kind of, signal path be damned. This is going to go where the time-based stuff goes. I'm going to have a fuzz at the end of my path with this, which I'm kind of excited about too, because it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't quite tell when they go in, the logic of it would be like fuzz first, delay second, reverb third, if you think of like the traditional quote unquote signal path. And even the way they have it laid out from left to right, it goes fuzz, reverb, delay. So no matter what, it's like one of those pedals that I think in some regards they're playing with the idea of how a black hole itself messes with time. And it's kind of throwing logic to the wind. But yeah, even in, it moves left to right that way. And then the knobs, you said there's the big one for the fuzz in the middle, which is our disintegrate for the singularity, is the setting. And then you have right outside of that in the center, you have your 4 reverb controls for the event horizon, which those are kind of the closest to corresponding because that's the middle foot switch.
Right.
But then your delay on the far right, the ergosphere, those knobs are gold tipped and they go all the way outside the edge of the pedal.
Yeah.
So it's just a very interesting layout, and I'm actually, it's been sitting on my desk the whole time we've been podcasting too. So I'm just like,
you're just like staring
touching it and clicking. Yeah. I'm like, it's cool. It's pretty to look at and it sounds really cool. I looked it up to make sure that we remembered what it was actually. And the chip that is in here is the PT2399.
The PT2399. Yes, you're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was on the tip of my tongue when we were earlier saying it, but I wanted to make sure we fit it in here because if anyone cares, that's important to have. So
well, no,
yes.
Excuse me. No, it is an important one because it is one of those digital chips that often gets mistaken as analog because it can sound so ooey gooey.
Yes, ooey gooey is the way I would describe this delay too, because I like how warm and syrupy it can get. And then when you throw in the modulation, it really starts to get like kind of like sticky in a really fun way. So yeah, I guess it was appropriate to start off, since we covered fuzz quickly, we went into my new toy because it's also like all I want to think about right now. Like I am dreaming about ways I can fit it into my songs and fit it into my setup constantly right now. So I appreciate the gear acknowledgement of a new toy.
There you go.
It'll definitely happen more on different episodes for sure.
Yeah. I love
so let's get back to drives. You sort of hinted back into drives with the double barrel, so I feel like that's a good time too. Okay. So drives. This is one where, as I said at the beginning, we're gonna probably have a few episodes. I think this is just gonna be Overdrive, and we'll do Distortion next week because there's just so much.
Cool.
This is probably for me the pedal that I've owned the most of because I flip them around a lot, and I like to also have a few at any given time just because there's so many different overdrive availabilities, which is very funny because if you like casually glanced at the boutique market, everything seems like it's like a clone of a Tube Screamer out of the gates.
That or a clone.
That or a clone. Yes, that's like the main offering for most people. But there is quite a wide variety of options and ways to control those options. I myself, my like go-to setup has been, and in various pedals, it's always, I like to have a blues breaker and a Tube Screamer. That's like always what I've had in some form or fashion, and then like flip in a clone here and there just because they do sound really good. A clone type. I've never owned an actual clone myself.
Wait, you're not a millionaire?
I'm not a millionaire yet. But I've always
had
some.
Did I tell you I was in this studio, and I'm not allowed to say where it was for fear of thievery. But in this studio, the guy had like 6 original gold clones.
I don't know if you told me so many pieces of gear from this project that I wasn't sure. I don't think I clocked those. I think I was more focused on the dumbles. When we talked about it.
The 2 dumbles.
Yeah, I was like,
that were in sequential order.
Dumbles.
Sequential serial order. No, this is like six of these clones, and I was not focused on what I was there for. I was just drooling over all the gear.
Yeah, that's a lot of gear. So I've had, as I said, tons of different ones, but I've sort of had like a core, like this is the 2 drives I like to stack together. Which I guess we can talk about sort of stacking and signal pathing as part of this, which is why this episode, we knew when we wanted to talk about this was going to be a long one.
Yeah.
And probably segment it out. How about you though? Where do you, like, I know you've had quite a few of these as well. And also I feel like we've flipped these back and forth between each other and lend them to each other quite often.
Yeah.
But what's like your normal setup? Like if you had to pick Desert Island Drive.
The Desert Island Drive? Oh man. I think it's really hard because I kind of go through drives a lot. I'm like never happy with them. Knowing myself, it would probably be something that is a dual drive, or like a drive plus boost, something that has more than just one. Because I like to cheat like that. That would be considered one pedal. Right now, I would say probably the Analog Man King of Tone. I've had a couple of them and let them go foolishly. But if I had to have one, that's probably what I'd do because it has 2 different options.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one to have too.
Or to be fair, 2 different options of the same thing. Like it's identical circuits on left and right, but you have 2 circuits.
Yes, and you've had quite a few of those, right?
I think 3. Yeah, I think
that
3.
sounds right. That sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the core of your sound has always been more in the flavor of that type of drive too.
Yeah.
Whenever I've thought of, like when I think of a drive for Alan, as I think through like the Tube Screamer Blues Breaker, I said, I've had that combo or some thereof basically since I first started getting pedals. My first one being the Full Tone Full Drive 2.
MOSFET or non-MOSFET?
I had the non-MOSFET one because I was early. It was an early purchase of Full Tone being on the market back in my high school band playing days.
Yeah, that was my first. That was my first like double drive pedal, if we can call it that.
And it still kind of holds up. That's a great sounding pedal.
Yeah. Although the newer ones, the full drive 3s have independent switches. The 2s,
yes, I feel like I feel like the Full Drive 3 came out to sort of compete with the fact that the double barrel, even though the double barrel is 2 drives, not a boost.
Right.
The double barrel had sort of taken up, because I know for both of us having like started out a lot of our playing in House of Worship, there's sort of like trend waves that you can see of like everyone's pedal board is virtually the same.
No,
and
that's not right. That's not true.
In the 2007 to like 2011-ish time period, everyone I knew had a Full Tone Full Drive.
Yeah.
Or they like had one at some point. It was on their board. They used it. Everybody had that same circuitry. And then JHS put out the double barrel, which the double barrel was a Morning Glory and a Tube Screamer. So you kind of got a little bit more drive, and I love that Morning Glory Blues Breaker circuit where it's like that like light drive that I literally never turn my Morning Glory off. It is always on,
always on,
100% of the time.
Nice.
And so what I had a Morning Glory next to my full drive at the time.
Okay.
And so as soon as the double barrel came out, I was like, oh, I can just put it into one pedal, and I don't necessarily use the boost side that much. I stack my ODs more than I boost typically, because I kind of like also the tone shaping. Plus, I don't really like just like straight clean boosts, which I guess we can talk about as part of this gain staging as well. And so I jumped ship to the double barrel. That didn't stop me from buying other drives and distortions, but I've had a double barrel. I've had every version of the double barrel from 1 through 4 at different times.
That's right, you have.
The 4 is, in my opinion, I don't know where else they could go from here, where it has the red remote for that third gain stage. It has the order switcher, and they also went with my favorite top mount jacks instead of side mount. So the double barrel is my desert island just because it does the two things I want extremely well. And I might get myself in trouble with people that listen to us, but it's the only JHS pedal I consistently enjoy. So
hey,
there's that.
No harm in that. Yeah, no harm in that one. What could they do to make a V5?
It would have to be something like magical and new, because the version 4 is basically a perfect dual overdrive. And they also added a clean blend on the Tube Screamer side.
Well, they could add a clean blend on the other side.
They could, but it's like such a clean thing already. It's like, what are you really going to do?
So they could change
basically
the
version 4
op-amps inside to make them higher headroom, like internal, like double the voltage internally, to make it, to give it higher headroom.
I feel like but like, would that justify a version 5 for most people? Probably not.
Probably not. But it's JHS.
Yeah.
They'll buy it.
Oh yeah. No,
all they have to do is put V5 limited edition. They'll sell it in 5 seconds and then be flipped for 10 times their value on Reverb.
I mean, the best way to get me would be to make a black one. Imagine a double barrel inverted where the black was the main and the white shotgun was the center of it. I would love that.
Dude, you would buy every single one they made.
Yeah, I would be set for that. So yeah, so that's I mean, I feel like for me, that's where I landed. That's where I've been. I've had like the Voyager, the Mayflower, the Harvester from Walrus Audio. I've had various Cusack. What's that white and gold pedal that I had for a while? I'm trying to remember what it was.
From Cusack?
No, not Cusack.
Was it
another brand.
The EM drive? Was it the
I've had the M drive.
Yeah, the M drive.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that. I've used so many. I mean, I have literally, for drives, I can't keep track.
Right.
Love pedal. What else is out there that we've used? Oh my gosh. Catalina bread. Had a few of theirs.
Or
it's
Catalan
like
bread.
this is
Catalan bread. I don't know. Does anyone know how to actually say that their name?
I just say so. Catalina bread because I always think of the Catalina wine mixer, and I just go with that.
No, okay, that works.
That's just what we're going with.
I love it.
And then most recently, a drive I've acquired and I'm excited about, and it's a JFET circuit, I believe, is the Fairfield Always On version of the Barbershop, which you were also super intrigued by, that I showed you the other day when you were over.
I was kind of hoping that you wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I do need to still lend it to you once I am done running it through its paces. But yeah, really impressed with that one. Very, very cool amp-like, which is like what every single one on the market's going to say. But very amp-like breakup in a way that actually I felt like it responded really, really, really well to the dynamics of how hard I was strumming.
Yeah.
Which is what you want it to be, like that amp-like thing where if you dig in or you lay off, it sort of cleans up or gets dirtier. And I love the idea. I don't know if I've come across that very often of an always-on pedal, but an always-on overdrive that doesn't have a bypass switch because you know that you're never going to turn it off and it saves tons of pedal board real estate. It's kind of brilliant.
Well, and I always have an overdrive on, like always.
Yeah, I don't like how my guitar sounds without an overdrive, honestly.
Yeah.
Like clean sounds so flat and boring.
Maybe that means you don't like your guitar. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I like the way my guitar sounds. No, it's like I every jazz guitar player is like, what an asshole.
Okay, so I talked about like the and like the King of Tone being like my desert island drive, and really it's just because like in that instance you're making me pick one. I don't have one right now, and I'll tell you what I have right now, and I kind of cycle through what I'm using depending on what I'm doing. I have most recently I got the Walrus Audio 385 Mark II. which I believe it is like sounds like an amp, but like the Filmo sound thing that was like, I didn't even look into it. I just like, it looked like what I wanted.
From what I understand, because I have not actually owned that one, but I remember when they released it, there was something about like, it's like based on like the sound of like the projector, right? Like it's like it's like a drive based on like,
yeah.
Okay. The Filmo sound projector.
Yeah.
Which I was like kind of intrigued by because it's just weird. It's like a weird thing.
It's different. It's different. But I got it because in live, I'd like to have as few pedals as possible, and this particular one, the Mark II, has an A/B switch, so it's got two channels in it, and it's in a single enclosure, so it's an on-off and it's an A/B, and you can set different volume and gains for A and B. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, so I like that one. I use that one. Other ones that I have and I've had and not cycled through since getting it. I did get the 1981 Inventions LVL, which is like they call it a full range overdriver, 2 little knobs. I love that little thing. It can do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, that thing does sound great. I just can't justify the price tag for it in my own brain, but it's pretty
like
cool.
$220. I think that's $220 when I got it, but the used ones are going down for like $170.
That I could get it around with that.
Yeah. And then we didn't talk about, I know you and I talked about when I bought it, but I bought the Chase Bliss Condor Hi-Fi because that came out like the week after I'd started like this one thing I was doing live and completely hated the sound I was getting live and was so frustrated. I was like, I need something. I need something that can really shape my tone. And then I think Joel knew that and released the Hi-Fi like the next day. So I'm like, well, that's it.
Yeah, specifically for you. It's like, you know what? Alan needs a new Chase Bliss pedal.
Well, he knows I've been thinking about one because they're dropping one tomorrow. And as we've also joked about,
you have a subscription to Chase Bliss pedals. So
I do. And by tomorrow, I mean
the only guy.
I'm the only one that does. So by the time this gets released, that whatever pedal is out will been out for a little while. So whatever came out on May 14th, that's what we're talking about. The other drive pedal that I really like is the Montreal Assembly 2 Positive. It is another dual, but it's stereo. It's stereo in, stereo out, and you can do a lot of different cool things. And it's a Crowther Hotcake clone.
Oh, I had a Hotcake too. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a Hotcake and I didn't like it when originally.
No, I didn't either. It was a little too. The word I would use was too fizzy for me at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like fizzy drives don't work well with the way my hands work on the guitar.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, you've been pretty stoked on that Montreal one for a bit now.
Yeah, and most of the times, like what I like about the drives that I use, it's really just more of a tone sweetener. I want to be able to use my pick dynamics as I'm playing to go from clean to just slightly broken up. So I really want to kind of give it that amp sound. Honestly, is what I'm doing. And both of like all the ones I've mentioned give me that option. I've also had good success with the Greer Lightspeed. I've liked that one as well. It's transparent. It doesn't really color much. It's really good. I'll tell you one drive I don't like. And I've never liked trying this. I don't think we've talked about this, but the Nobles ODR1.
Dude, okay, I want to like that because of like the all of the guitar players that like kind of made it famous and sought after are all people I love their sound, but it doesn't work for me.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't work for me at all. I have never been able to get a good sound out of it, and it's
too like gnarly and nasally to me.
Yeah, it's sinusy. Even. It's like beyond. It's beyond nasally. It's into sinusy.
It's like a sinus infection.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't work for me. I don't know why. I was just gonna say, there was actually I had one drive pedal that we forgot, and we're forgetting a big one here. Is Boss the Boss sections? Actually, my first pedal that my mom got me, I ended up returning because I wanted a multi-effects, which was stupid, and I should have kept this, and it was a Christmas present gone awry. I had a Boss BD2, and I was like, this is cool, but I wanted to do like a bunch of other things, so I returned it and got like a Digitech multi-effects processor.
Okay.
Silly
smart move. Really
teenage
smart move.
decision, though. But funnily enough, I got back into the Boss BD2 because it's that Bluesbreaker circuit, that very, very creamy amp-like distortion drive thing.
No,
and
it's a blues. It's its own circuit. It's a blues driver. It's a
blues
different
driver,
circuit.
yes.
It's different than the
You're
blues
right.
breaker.
Sorry, I literally, it's in the name, so I'll just see myself out.
Well, no. It's I point that out because it honestly is a common misconception. And when you see on the Reddit threads and that sort of stuff, you'll see people like correcting each other. Some very graciously, some not so much.
Which is the entire Reddit vibe. So
yeah. But no, like for people listening, there is two different circuits. There's the blues breaker, which the JHS Morning Glory is based off of, and that's Paul, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's like based on a Marshall 1962 blues breaker amp.
It's one of the Marshall ones from that era. I don't actually have off the tip of my brain.
It is a Marshall blues breaker.
Top of my brain. Yes, it's a Marshall blues breaker, but I can't remember which circuit it's based on.
Year aside, it's a Marshall blues breaker, and then the blues driver, the BD2, to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, is an original Boss circuit.
That sounds correct to me as well, just from anecdotally knowing it.
Yeah, and if I'm wrong, somebody please jump in and say, "Hey, you're wrong."
Yeah, please get in the comments and yell at us. We always welcome that. So
yeah, but there's also like a few clones of that as well, and one I didn't mention either is the Keeley Super Fat mod, which was a mod that Robert Keeley did on BD2s and then just released it himself. I really like that one as well. It kind of does give that same kind of warm, fat vibe. Both the Blues Breaker and Blues Driver do the same similar thing with the way that I set them up.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of accurate too. Yeah, and it's funny because I feel like it's part of the fact that both of us play somewhat of an ambient genre of music, that those are sort of the ones they gravitate towards.
Right.
Just because they're close to clean, then you dig in.
Yeah.
That's really kind of what it comes down to. Yeah, we bounced around a bit there. I love the circuitous nature of these conversations so far, because it's also, I think, for those who are also pedal enthusiasts, this is how these conversations go. You get excited, and then you talk about a thing, and you get more excited and talk about it further, and then you find yourself down a rabbit hole thinking about like a pedal you owned and remembering all the happy feelings and the way it made you feel.
Yeah, but that's also the way we have all of our conversations. So for those listening, if you get used to the bunny trails, because like that's what we do.
Yeah, when we were sort of pitching each other on how this would go, the premise of this is it's just going to be we record our conversations about gear, which is hilarious, and that we still have them even though we're not doing this. They're just different things.
And we still have conversations when we're not recording. Like we have conversations that aren't being turned into episodes.
Yeah, which sometimes I'm like, we should have maybe recorded that one. Let's go back. So Tube Screamer and Blues Driver, Blues Breaker type circuits is where we both sort of find most of our fun. But let's just talk a bit about some of the other ones I know that I like. So we touched on the Klon earlier.
Yeah.
I've had a few different Klon types. The one I liked the most and had the longest was the Walrus Audio Voyager. It's just, that pedal it's easy. It's 3 knobs. It does exactly what you need it to do. I've just always like enjoy that sound. The Klon sound for me is almost a little too boxy sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
Is that a good word that you feel like it relates to how a Klon sounds? Like it's almost like too square the way the signal comes out.
Like you're from the 50s. You're square, man.
Yeah, it's
no, I think that's a good way of doing it. I got one of the KTRs when it first came out.
I forgot you had that. You had the red one, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't gel with it, so it went pretty quick. Same kind of thing. Which I had a Voyager too, and I think I liked the Voyager better than the KTR, but I didn't keep either very, very long.
Yeah, that's so Klons. I feel like I had the Wampler Tumnus for a little bit too.
Little nod to C.S. Lewis there.
Yeah, which I that's literally why I got it. I was like, oh, it's a Klon type, and it's a little C.S. Lewis nod, and then it was cool. But I feel like Klons are a thing where I have like a season with them, or like maybe even a specific like song I'm working on, or a project where I'm like, oh, this is the sound I need. But it never sticks around. Yeah. I do often find myself though with JFET style drives as one that I'm like, oh, this would be cool to have on hand. Which I believe the boost on the full drive is a JFET style boost. Is that correct?
Okay. I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it is. And I think that's why like my brain is kind of drawn to that style of overdrive.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that I like started out with that style of like color added to my tone.
Sure.
Just I know that's another one I liked, and that's actually also the barbershop has like that JFET circuit. It's
cool. Yeah,
that type of thing, which I have been enjoying. So shockingly, I find myself back at the same thing all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think you've said a couple things that lead me to this next statement. When it, the overdrives that we gravitate to are less about sound and more about feel. And you mentioned like using something like a clon or, whatever to grab a specific sound. Like if you're trying to create a specific sound for a project, like you'll go to that. But it may not be the one you gravitate to naturally because it doesn't have the feel that you want. And I think that really kind of comes down to the way that you and I play in a way that a lot of people really like realistically play. It's like, how does it feel to you in your fingers, not just your ears? And I think that goes to that whole thing, that statement that says like tone is in the fingers. And that gets kind of bastardized in a lot of different ways. People make fun of it, but the reality is it is like it's in the way that you play. Like Paul, you and I've tried this experiment. We've sat down and actually we just did this over the weekend. Like we sat down with the exact same guitar and the exact same signal chain, and it sounded completely different because we play very differently and the way that we use our fingers. Yeah,
it is. And it's the funny thing because, I mean, part of why like the channel starting out too is like sort of like getting sounds out there and letting people hear things before they buy them, etc. And often because I just get these questions anecdotally because people know I love gear and I'm trying new gear all the time. And at the end of the day, my answer typically is like, if someone says, should I get this? Would it fit? I'm like, play it and see if it works with your hands. That's really at the end of the day. Like, I can't tell you what you're going to like. And I think overdrives as a type of pedal might be the one that that is the most relevant to. Not just because it's up front of your signal, but because it is something that's so touchy.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you learn a lot about your hands when you turn on an overdrive that doesn't work with it, I think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think I want to pause and say this to anybody listening. It is perfectly fine to ask friends. It's perfectly fine to go on social media and ask questions. It's perfectly fine to check out YouTube videos. I recommend ours because it's really good. Just kidding. No, it's to seek out somebody else's opinion of a piece of gear. But the golden rule for yourself should be, the final answer is what sounds good to you, what feels good to you. Because I just gently slammed Noble's ODR1 a bit ago. I don't like it for myself, but it is a classic. It is called the Nashville sound for a reason. It's because way more people love it. And I'm not wrong for not liking it. They're not wrong for loving it. It's just one of those things. So don't ever feel bad seeking something out for yourself and having your own opinion of it. I will say on the forums, like, I don't like Fuzz. And I think I'm like the only other one. And then every once in a while somebody like, actually, I don't either. And it's okay. It's okay. So the golden rule is decide for yourself what's right for you.
Yes, that is a really good synopsis of the point I was trying to make, but also got stuck in the thought about hands. But no, and to that end too, I will also counterpoint that with there are some objectively bad pieces of gear though that we can make fun of and will on this podcast and channels. So there is bad gear.
Okay, sometimes I don't think we've mentioned bad gear yet though.
No, and the Noble's ODR1 is not that either.
So now I'm curious what is a piece of bad gear. Now I want to know, because I want to know, like, what are we going to be actually slamming later? Like, what is something you gotta throw something out? I guess people will have to tune in to find out. I have a few in mind that I'm not. It's going to take us way down a rabbit trail. And we don't have enough time on this episode to do that. Okay,
so
true.
But yes, there is objectively bad gear. I'm going to make sure that we also make fun of that too.
Got it. Cool.
But yes. No, so overdrives, we just kind of, meandered through our journey and what we like and don't like and how we play it and kind of build styles we like. We could get really nerdy, and we probably will in later episodes, on like capacitors and on the front. I know I want to get into like what controls I actually get on a drive, because I've realized over the last few years that that's important to me. But that feels like it's for a whole nother episode as we kind of dial into like preference and control and kind of maybe what to look for. Because as Alan was saying, yes, it is always okay. I always hate when I drop into like a Reddit forum and someone's like, hey, what should I buy for my board? This is what I have now, and here's the music I like. And then people are just like yelling at them, be like, you just figure it out for yourself. Because part of this, you know, the whole thing about gear is like it's fun to talk about with other people. It's fun to relate to and try to understand. It's art within an art form. Music has a lot of, you know, various places you can really, really nerd out with your friends about stuff. And guitar pedals and effects pedals are certainly one that I have always really appreciated when people want to nerd out, about it with me. I always have to be really careful. I don't have to do this with Alan, which is why we have such easy talks about this. But like, if someone's like, oh, I play guitar, I have some pedals, and I have to like slow down and not get too deep in the weeds, because they might just be a person who like, they just like have like a few EHX pedals they've had for 20 years. Yeah. And they don't want to talk about like, you know, the parameter control of the trim pot that they didn't know was in their pedal. And I'm like, oh, did you know you can do this with it? And then they're just looking at me glazed over. So we want to be the place where no one...
take the back off the pedal there. Someone does that? What?
Yeah, and people look at me like I'm crazy. So yes, this is not a place where we will be glazing over, nor will we be telling you not to experiment or ask questions.
But I think it can be daunting for someone just jumping into either a category of pedals or pedals in general. Like if you're new to guitaring, I just made that word up, guitaring. I think that's okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
If you're new to it and you go on to Reverb, Sweetwater, you know, Perfect Circuit, whatever, and you start looking at pedals, it's going to be overwhelming. So it is okay in those instances to ask somebody, where do I start? Where do I start? Like, and you'll get some basic answers of, okay, you need compression, you need a drive, you need delay, you need reverb, and you need some sort of modulation.
And the correct answer to where do you start is listen to the Pedal Collaborative podcast about signal chains.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
The correct answer.
There is no other.
There is only one answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
like in the description below, whatever, you should be able to get a hold of us like via email if you do have questions. We're happy, or in the comment section, we're happy to give our opinions for sure and help you along your journey. That's
we
really
have a lot of them.
Opinions?
Yeah, we have
correct.
them.
That's correct. We do.
So, in the interest of the fact that we're going to have another one of these, let's wrap this one up. Thank you all for listening. Continue collaborating. And we look forward to talking more about drive and distortion next week.
Yeah, it's going to be good. All right. Peace.
Thanks all.